Would you like to kick us off?
No.
Okay, I guess I will then, since there's only two of us and you declined.
Yeah. You asked. You didn't tell me to. And my answer is no.
Okay.
I don't want to.
You know that moment when someone names something about you that you've never had words for, and suddenly you feel seen? Seen in a way that's not necessarily flattering or critical, just really real. That's what this podcast is about.
On every episode of Seen by Berkman, we explore real stories, practical applications, and honest conversations about what it actually looks like to be understood through the power of perception.
Not as a label, not as a type, but as a whole person.
This is a place where human data meets human depth.
I'm Amy.
And I'm Torri.
And this is Seen by Berkman.
All right, welcome to our very first Seen and Unscripted episode, where in today's conversation, we're actually not going to have as much of a conversation as we are going to answer some questions that we have never seen before. So this is going to be really fun for us because we had to do a lot less preparation before we showed up. And I think it's going to be fun for our listeners because we're going to go into topics in different directions and we'll see where the questions take us.
Yeah.
What we're planning to do is take about 30 minutes and see how many questions that we can both answer within that time frame. I'm not sure if we'll get through one. I don't know if we're going to get through the whole deck, but it's going to be fun and we'll see where it goes.
I love this. I'm excited.
Yay. I'm excited too. I feel like it's a nice change in how the episode is working because for me, as a 99 insistence, like when I have something in my head, I want to make sure we say it a certain way.
Yeah.
And so this almost feels liberating to just be able to say what comes to mind and reread the questions.
And my 7 insistence likes it because we don't have a plan.
Yeah, and it feels more natural.
It's very natural and organic. I also like it because to me, I feel like this was like the inspiration to have this podcast because these are, if we had like a tally of how many hours over the last 10 years, I mean, it'd probably be months that we've sat in a room talking about these
years.
things. Could be years. And so I like that it's more organic and kind of what's happening normally day to day in our world of work versus kind of the studio.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so we have 4 topics that these questions are categorized into. So one of the topics is thought leadership. That will all be industry related. We have another set of cards which are specific to the Berkman method. Another category of cards which are just for fun / let's get personal. So I'm really intrigued to see how those go. And then the final set of cards are the consultants are in, and those are essentially asking for advice.
Okay.
So let's get started. Would you like
Are these color coded for the Berkman?
I don't know.
No. Okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Do you want to pull the first card?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to start with thought leadership.
Okay.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. What's one leader habit that quietly destroys psychological safety?
Oh, so relevant.
So relevant.
Okay.
Well, first of all, one is like almost so easy because there's just millions of things every day.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about how psychological safety is really difficult and slow to build and can be destroyed in one meeting, like done.
Do you have something that comes to mind right
Yeah,
away?
I mean, I think what we should focus on is the concept of psychological safety, like creating an environment where people can speak up and share their ideas. I think we generally, when we're talking about psychological safety, think of more extreme examples, like the leader yelled at somebody or, right? Like but that's kind of rarely what's destroying it. It's very quiet and subtle. And that's what makes it so hard as a leader to even notice that it's happening. So, I mean, I can think of 100. So, as a leader, speaking up too soon with your idea. Because once your idea is on the table, the rest of the team is going to be like, well, if that's what they think, then I'm not going to share what I think because they're almost opening the door right into a perceived conflict.
Yeah.
It could be, rushing the meeting and not giving people the space to like kind of ideate or brainstorm. That could destroy. And that's why psychological safety is so tough, because it's almost like what doesn't destroy it, right? Like it's almost like, how do you, instead of focusing on what does, it's almost like, how do we create habits and methods as a leader and like rules of engagement as a leader that are opening the door for it. And I think it's like we almost need to lean into more on that side, because the destroying is like it's almost anything, right?
Yeah.
And it's so fragile.
Oh, interesting. So what I love that it's the first question and we're already answering a different question. Is it a different question? Yeah, because you're saying what instead of what.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, what's one leader habit that destroys psychological safety?
That maybe, okay, so maybe say one that people maybe wouldn't think of.
Well, if I, think about our last conversation we had here, it's not being comfortable with disagreement and conflict.
Yeah.
And shutting it down. And then as soon as you start to feel that tension in the room where it's like, okay, there's some friction. And like we feel it. And as the leader, if my tendency is to get rid of it and shut it down and move.
Because you think that's helpful.
Well, and like we talked about last time, you're reacting to your own discomfort.
Yeah.
And so really as the manager or the leader, it's sitting in that discomfort and maybe naming it like, hey guys, this is uncomfortable, but this is why we're here, is we all have different ideas and thoughts, and it's going to create friction if we're sharing that to get to the best answer. We have to go through that process.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that it's always important to remind people it's called psychological safety, not psychological comfort.
Yes. I think that's so big. Say more about that.
Well, I think that, a lot of the times growth comes from getting out of your comfort zone. And we want people to be able to feel safe to get out of their comfort zone and to speak up and to lean into these tensions. But that may not be comfortable.
Right. And I think a lot of, I think it's gotten better. But when we first created the High Performing Teams program, so that word psychological safety was just newer at the time. And executives they did not like that word.
Right.
they don't like the psychological, and they don't like the
sounds mushy.
And I think it's like, well, I'm not like, this is a job and I'm not here to make them comfortable and I'm not here to make them happy. And it's like, yeah, that's not the point of psychological safety.
The point isn't that. The point is to like embrace tension.
An environment where it's safe to have conflict and where it's safe to have tension.
Yes.
And the tension's productive and the tension doesn't destroy the idea, the relationship, the team. And that's really what leadership is like, again, we talked about this last time, but it's the active role of creating an environment that's allowing the people to kind of bring their ideas and their thoughts and their disagreements.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be a big one. But I think for me, I'm trying to think of other ones that are very subtle, because in my experience, I can think of one client that it was like egregious what happened, and it was like hard to believe, how the leaders were actually behaving was insane. But that's the outlier. Most of the time, what is hurting and destroying the psychological safety of a team or an organization, it's so subtle.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I think what I've been reflecting on recently is it doesn't always have to do with the team. And oftentimes it's not personal to the team. If the leader is doing something that might be hurting psychological safety, that it feels personal because they're the people in the room. But it doesn't have anything to do with them.
Wait, like give me an example of that.
And so like if we're having a brainstorming meeting and the leader is coming in and they're stressed because they have 100 other priorities that don't have anything to do with that meeting. But if they haven't left that stress outside of the room,
which is hard to do, it's hard to walk into a room and just leave everything at the door.
And then it feels like, okay, if we're not as productive as possible in this meeting, then I'm just wasting time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do we go faster when really we don't need to go fast? We need to go slow to go fast.
Right.
And maybe we just need to sit and think about it for a second, or give people some extra time to be able to process what we're talking about and then to speak up. But I think that, you know, stress behavior is a real thing and everyone handles it differently, but being able to be aware of that and realizing that your stress behavior can be kind of slowly kind of hurting leaking onto the other people in the room, even if the thing you're stressed about has nothing to do with them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I want to fix what I said, because I said it's hard to leave something at the door, like you can't.
Yeah.
So it's like you're bringing all of that in.
Unless you are actively managing it. And but if you're not aware, then it's very hard.
If you're already in that sort of like heightened,
if you're in that
elevated, frustrated state,
stressed, frustrated, kind of, you know.
That, and that's a great point. Just your energy,
yes, that
destroys.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so it's like nothing even happened. You walking into the room and everybody sensing it and being like, "Oh gosh,
what did I do wrong that they're upset?"
Right.
But it's like, "Oh no, it has nothing to do with you. It's this other to-do list that I'm worried about."
It has nothing to do with you, but it's still scary.
Yeah, that's true. That's
it's
a
like
good point.
And you're sort of like, now's not the time.
Yeah,
I'm not.
You're like, well, I don't want to bring up this out of the box idea when this person looks like they're about to
now's
freak
not the
out.
Time. Yeah, like they're for sure. So I think that's another great example. So that's, I would say, from a kind of like higher level point of view, if you're a leader, look for the subtle things that are potentially destroying it, that you probably think is something good about your leadership style.
Yeah, it definitely could be.
Right? Like, could be like, we have no conflict on my team.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, I'm so proud of myself. We have no conflict. And it's like, well, there is conflict. So if you don't see it, it's just not being handled in a productive way.
Yeah, the conflict just isn't getting exposed.
But I'm thinking, oh, this is great because everybody's getting along.
Everyone's happy and everything is nice.
And no one's saying that they're unhappy and no one's saying that they're upset. Yeah, no one's disagreeing with anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's the trap, is that sometimes what we're doing we actually think is working, which means we're less inclined to go look at what's not working, which is why it's so important to do like quarterly check-ins on psychological safety with your team, because you sometimes are the last to know as the leader.
I love that. So what's the takeaway? So it's check in with your team.
Yeah.
Don't assume maybe because it's comfortable for you, it's safe for everybody else.
Yeah.
And check your energy before you walk into the room.
And I think psychological safety is not the same as psychological comfort.
Yeah.
And I think that's really big.
Yeah.
You have to separate those two out.
Yay. Okay,
Yay.
cool.
Okay.
So I'm going to pick the next question.
Okay.
But I'm not going to look.
Oh, you're not looking.
No, I want it to be a real surprise. Oh, another thought leadership.
Yeah, pick another one. Yeah.
Let me pick a different one. Oh, okay. The consultants are in.
Okay.
I have high insistence needs, 76, but I just started a new job 6 months ago. That seems like a long time ago. That seems to have, but the job seems to have no structure or onboarding. When I have questions, people just keep directing me to look through SharePoint. How can I get this need met, or should I go back on the job market? Okay, so the person doesn't have enough insistence.
They have a high need for insistence, meaning they want to plan, they want to know what to expect, they want to know how to do things.
And they're not getting
getting the training or the information that they need.
Yep. Okay. So there's not enough insistence for them, assuming they're not as successful as they want to be because they don't have enough insistence from the new role at this point. Okay. So then the question is, how can I get this insistence need met, or should I go back on the job market? I don't think the answer is to go back on the job market.
I think if it were pervasive, like if you were going on a year and a half and it's like, this is just not the environment that's going to give you that, because you're just going to be completely uncomfortable all the time. But yeah, that's definitely last resort. Like we want to try to fix the problem before
it seems like they haven't tried to fix the problem. yet.
And so what's interesting about that question is that if someone has a high insistence need, they don't know if they're doing a good job if they don't know what the job is, like very specifically. That person's always going to feel like they don't know if they're doing a good job, even if they might be doing a good job.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because they don't have the like measurements of this is how you know.
Well, and it's like if they don't feel comfortable, how could they be doing a good job if it feels so uncomfortable?
Right. So one kind of is going to impact the other. I would say I would recommend to this person to meet with your manager. And if you have your Berkman, take that with you and explain, like, I do best with more information and the more detail you can give me about, like, what does a job well done look like, or what are your expectations as my manager or as my leader. And the thing I would say for people that don't need a lot of insistence in their life, like me, and you too, you're high usual, so you are, but you don't need it from the environment. When people do have that high need and they're asking a lot of questions, the trap is that you think they don't get it. And that's why they're asking so many questions and trying to get more information from you about what to do. And it can be like, do they not get it? And it's like, no, they get it. But to them, there's a right way for it to be done. And the more information they get from you, the more they can align their work with what your expectations are.
Yeah. And the more, I think when you are early in a job, like as that person's manager, they're incentivized for it to work out for the new employee.
Right.
And so the new manager might be thinking, well, I don't want to micromanage them. We just hired this person as a very talented new employee. And so the last thing I want to do is go and tell them what to do.
Right.
And so I think that conversation is important because for both of us, we're not going to tell anyone all of the details for what they want to do.
Not only
that would be frustrating to us.
And we think it would be frustrating to them.
Exactly.
Like
then
they would
we go and
almost
project our needs onto them.
Right.
And so, of course, that would be insulting to go and say, this is exactly how
nobody wants that.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody wants to be told exactly how to do it.
And so if the manager is able to have a or the employee approaches the manager and is like, hey, I know that, let's assume the manager was super excited for this new person to start and they're very talented, but it feels uncomfortable. And so if the new employee is able to say, hey, whenever you give me a new project right now, I want to walk you through what you picture as a process, or even they may come up with a process or how they want to do it that they just want to be validated.
Yeah, and just run it by the manager. But that to them gives them like the blessing.
Then they have the peace of mind
to go
the blessing.
Execute with confidence.
Yes, because
like, this is a good way to do it.
Because even if that's the thing with the high insistence need is it's not just knowing what the end game is, it's knowing the how
process.
And the process has been validated on how to get there.
Yeah.
And so I think there's some work the employee can do, which is, okay, why don't you, even though you're new, assuming they're qualified for the job, they can figure out what they would suggest is the right way to go about it and then bring that plan or the steps or whatever the details are to the manager to get their blessing.
Yeah.
Because
or the adjustments. Like,
or
I
the
like
adjustments.
This, maybe don't do this.
Yes, exactly. And maybe they rework the whole thing
the
together.
high insistence person would love.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They're not going to look at that like micromanaging. They're going to be like, oh, they get me such great feedback.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So I think the employee can take on some of the work by working through some of those details. And yeah, they're new. It's going to be hard, but if they're up for the challenge, I think it will be worthwhile to then present it to the manager. And instead of feeling like you have to go with the finished product, bring your first draft or your first steps before you go approach the finished product.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, there you go.
So next we have Berkman's subject matter expert. What are some signs a person has moved from a strength into an overused strength?
Oh, love that question.
Yeah. So with Berkman, you have your strength behavior, which is your usual behavior. But your usual behavior can go one of two ways. And so sometimes it's a strength, or most of the time we hope it's a strength. But every once in a while we lean on the strength too much and it becomes an overused strength where it's not productive anymore.
Or in the wrong situation.
Or using it in the wrong situation.
I think the thing that's hard about strengths and overused strengths is that because they're both stemming from usual behavior and the person is still showing up as themselves, it feels comfortable for the person.
Yeah, that's the big trap for the overused strength is that they think it's working.
They think it's working. And that's where...
And then they're just like, just double down more.
Yeah, and they're like, well, what is wrong with my candor in these meetings? And I'm like, I feel great.
You must need...
sharing what's
you guys
on my
must
mind.
need more candor.
Yeah, I maybe should just be even more candid with all of you.
Yeah.
But really, I think the reflection on the overused strength, it doesn't have to do with if it's comfortable for the person. It has to do with, is it comfortable for the other people in the room, or is it productive for the situation? And
but that actually brings up an interesting point, because if you're overusing your strength, but it feels okay, how do you call that out? Because the person is then, whoever's overusing the strength is almost blindsided, because to your point, they feel like it's working.
Yeah, that was the very real example I just shared of my candor. And that's why...
So how do we...
That's why, self-awareness is one thing, but I think a lot of the times where you gain self-awareness is in the reactions of other
the others'
people.
awareness.
And so it's like, if every time I lean into the straightforwardness more, she seems to be shutting down the group instead of me saying, hey, you can all share like what you're thinking, and then if they share less, it's like, okay, well, me saying this isn't working.
Right.
So I think it's paying more attention to not, is it comfortable for me? Is it comfortable for everybody else? And is it moving the situation forward? And so obviously you have to get out of your own head to be like, is the behavior I'm using in this situation moving the meeting forward, moving the project forward, moving our relationships forward? And so it's more about the desired outcome. Are you using the right tool for the job? I can't use a hammer if really what you need is the screwdriver type of situation.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two dimensions to this question, because there is the noticing myself, like when I start to maybe kind of have catastrophizing thoughts, like, okay, I'm leaning into my emotional energy too much, and it's not helpful at this point. And I notice that, because I'm like, whenever I start thinking those thoughts, that's always a sign that I've kind of moved into not stress, but I'm sort of leaning into my behavior. Too much. And so I think there's like that personal catching that. And then to your point, there's like the patterns of, I notice, but like one data point isn't enough for that. It's like you have to have a few data points where it's like, I notice that when I do this, this happens. And I'm self-aware enough, and I'm others aware enough to be watching what's happening in the room and the dynamics of the room. And again, this is what makes all of this so hard, is it's like there's so much to be taking in and managing your own perceptions, which could be accurate or not.
Yeah, no, that's why I think like one of the biggest things is that this has to be something you constantly practice.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you ever arrive.
No, I don't think you do, which is kind of discouraging.
Yeah. So to me, I would say one of the ways to know a strength is becoming an overused strength is that it's not moving
something
the situation forward. And it's not getting the outcome.
It's not moving the conversation. It's not moving the project. It's not.
Yeah.
But the trap could be, maybe it needs to kind of sit in some
fascinating.
You know what I mean? Like this moment calls for it not moving forward. And so like it could be that's exactly what the group or the team needs at that moment.
Yeah. So that's why you have to be so clear on the outcome. Yeah. Because if the situation does require more candor, but that is uncomfortable for the team, you should continue to use that tool if that is going to advance the outcome, even if it requires other people to get outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah. So I guess in that moment, the leader would check in and say, do we feel like there's more here that we need to talk about? Like, do we feel like we've worked through it? Or do we kind of feel like we've gotten everyone's opinion and now it's time for my candor to move things forward?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of an actual action someone could take in that moment.
In which moment?
Like if we're a team and I'm not sure if we're stuck and I may be overusing a strength, or are we in ambiguity, which we need to be in because we're trying to solve a difficult problem?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think it comes down to creating clarity in every moment that you can. And so in communicating that clarity and asking the team, are we all processing and we need a couple more minutes and then you guys will contribute and we start moving it forward, or have I been too direct and has this actually shut the conversation down?
And they're just not engaged at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think just hearing from them, because again, we can't assume that we know what they're thinking.
That actually brings up one of my favorite points. This is like one of my favorite.
I'm excited.
So, in our Berkman High Performing Teams program, we do a like psychological safety survey. And like my favorite thing when I'm facilitating that workshop is when I would say, how would you guys rate the level of psychological safety in the team? And that's always like the most fun part, because if they say, we've got areas I think we could improve on, but I think in most ways we're pretty good. Like we're not perfect. That's a good sign. When everyone just sits there and stares at you, you don't even need this like safe. You don't even need the tool. Yeah. Like you don't even need to ask. It's like noted. Like
you don't feel psychologically safe enough to share the answer. Right. You can assume there isn't any.
Yes, exactly.
Or there's a lot of.
I always say that out loud. I'm like, that's a bad sign. When no one says anything and you ask that question, that's a bad sign.
Yeah, lots of room for growth.
Yeah.
I think it just comes down to being able to notice what's going on around you.
Just being so in tune with what you're doing and how it feels and how people are responding to it. And it's a constant.
Yeah, constant.
Okay,
so since we're almost at time, I'm going to pick our last category, which was just for fun / personal.
Okay.
So here we go. Oh, I love this. What thought leaders inspire you? How do their ideas connect to Berkman?
Oh, what thought leaders?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Well, I am, if you can already tell by who I reference in this podcast, I'm a big fan of Brené Brown.
Yeah.
And I think it's because you can tell that she does the work on herself. She has been through a lot. She's open about those things. I love how much she cares about her family. And you can just tell, like, her values are so clear. She talks about the things that she struggles with, and she says that she's still going to keep trying. And I think that she has a lot of, obviously, extremely powerful research, but then continues to push the conversation forward and push herself forward, I think, in very healthy ways. But you can just tell, like, she's like a person too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
No,
I like that.
So raw and real. And, obviously we don't know her personally, but from her podcast and when you listen to her talk, to your point, it feels like she has such absolute clarity about who she is and what her values are. And like she's always running everything through that.
Yes.
It just feels so consistent.
Yes.
Like this is who you are.
And I think if more people did that, the world would be a better place.
I agree.
And so hands down, I would say her for me. Just like, I think professionally and personally, she is just a rock star person.
She's a rock star. And she's from Houston.
Yep. Who would you choose?
That's harder for me. I definitely like they have a podcast right now, so I definitely think Adam Grant makes really good points through his research. He's very much on the research side, and I think he's helping drive conversations that aren't as common. And because of who he is, it carries a certain validity that maybe in someone that was like, to the point, if Brené says we should have work-life balance, it's like, well, of course Brené would say that. But when he says it, it's like it has a different
it's grounded in
counterbalance. Like it's a different point of view. It's like it's research-based, and there's something in it that like is tangible that you can hold on to. And that's why they're so interesting together, because it's like one side of the brain. Like,
well, but she's
also in the research. Yes, she is.
She always says she's grounded theory, and I think Adam Grant is more of a traditional researcher. So it's just like different approaches to the research.
Yeah.
And maybe how they relate to the research.
Yes.
Okay, can I reframe the question for you? Okay, so here is the question for you. I don't want to call it like a thought leader. Maybe it's more of like what like author or something that inspires you, but it doesn't have to be a traditional thought leader. Because I think there's so many people like this for you, but maybe it's the thought leader bucket that feels funny.
I guess like to me they fall more in the spiritual. Yes. Or is that what you're?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, if I, like who I spend my time outside of work like reading would be like Eckhart Tolle. Any of the different authors that he has kind of like his own book club with the books that he endorses.
So maybe explain who he is.
Oh,
because people may not know.
Yep, that's fair. So Eckhart Tolle is he's a spiritual what is he? That's a hard thing. I think that he is one of the few people that I would say is either enlightened or close to enlightened, right? Like there's certain thought leaders. Another one is Byron Katie. And what's like interesting is they go through these periods of like huge intense depression and like it's long. It goes on for like years and years and years, and it's almost like finally something breaks inside of them and like they just become these like people who exist and they're like perfectly in the present. And so Eckhart Tolle has a similar story, very depressed, and then one day like wanted to kill himself, and then one day he kind of wakes up and it's like you're a newborn baby again. Everything is magical and everything is amazing. And it's, it's one of those things where if you like stop and really look around, there's like 1,000, maybe 1 million miracles happening right now in this room, but we're just not paying attention. And so it's just, to me, people who look at life differently and like see the magic and the wonder of life, that's who I tend to gravitate towards. But again, also it's simple, but it's not easy, right? It's another example of and I think one thing over the last 10 years, you and our conversations have gone more in that direction. Just kind of thinking too about Berkman as a practice like that, like Eckhart Tolle, that's a spiritual practice. And I do think there's elements of that translate into, your work world and how you show up at work.
I think all of it does.
Yeah.
You just may not realize it.
Yes.
What books of his would you recommend?
My favorite book of his is A New Earth. But that's a harder one to read. So if you are just starting out, I would recommend that you start with The Power of Now. It's a really short book, and it's really, the idea of you're not your thoughts and really starting to understand that dynamic. And I think that's the beginning of where all transformation happens, is the separation of, the mind thinks, just like the lungs breathe and the heart beats. That's what the mind is supposed to do. But that doesn't mean that we have to believe what it's saying. And our work is really to sort of tease out like what is, like kind of back to what Brene does. Like she knows what resonates and what's true for her. And she's so crystal clear on that. And she has that roadmap that it makes her sorting through things in the moment so much easier.
Because you're aligned on that.
Yep.
Actually, that makes me think of another group of thought leaders that I like right now, and I've been listening to them a lot, which is the Minimalist podcast.
Yeah.
And I think when you think of minimalism, you think of physical clutter.
Yeah.
But so much of their podcast and their work is actually about emotional clutter and mental clutter. And it's not just about physical things. Oftentimes that's where minimalism starts.
Yeah.
But it's about any of the other noise and things that you want to let go of that are taking up space in your mind that isn't bringing you value.
Well, and the physical things in the room create the mental clutter, because the more things are in the room, the more the mind is having to keep itself like on all these different things, versus an empty room, the mind can rest.
Yes, exactly. So I really enjoy their podcast and hearing how they think about things and how they process different situations with people, because there's a lot of diversity in what they apply their minimalism to.
Yeah.
And I think that at the heart of it, it just comes down to leading a more minimal, more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And the thing they say at the end of each of their podcasts is to love people and use things. Because if you get it the other way around, then it doesn't work.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's
so
fun.
I just think that their conversation is it's a cool conversation to listen to if you want to kind of think about your life in a different way.
Yeah. And the other person I would say, which I just feel like people will be like, this seems so obvious, but I just love her. And that's Oprah. And she actually, it was one of her quotes that I read a long time ago, and I think she starts her podcast with this. But this is what I love, is that she said, over the decades that I've interviewed people, and she's interviewed everybody from like presidents to like a woman who was homeless and, talking about addiction, right? So it's like you can't get a bigger spectrum. And she said, and it never fails, after the interview, they always lean over and say, "Did I do okay?" And like, just, do you see me, right? And am I good enough? And am I okay? And she's like, Beyonce, Barack Obama, like, it doesn't matter who it is. Like, it always, without fail, they lean over and say, "Did I do okay?" And it's just like, wow, that's such a
human.
Yeah. And at that level, I think it's like, if they're questioning that at that level, of course we're questioning that at our level.
And even if they still want the validation.
They still need the validation, or they think they need it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love that. So we have Brene, Eckhart Tolle, the minimalist, Adam Grant, and Oprah.
What a way to end.
Okay, well, I think that wraps up our first Seen and Unscripted episode. I think that was fun.
It was so fun.
Cool.
All right.
Well, we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Seen by Berkman. If this changed how you see yourself or someone else, it worked. Share it with someone who needs the conversation. See you next time.